The Lord of the Rings trilogy, arguably one of the best, if not the best movie franchise ever made. And in the year 2025, if you are one of those poor souls who have yet to watch this trilogy, you must truly be living deep in a hobbit hole, oblivious to the wonders around you. Now today, I'm going to attempt doing something that no one else has ever done before, at least that I could find, and that is ranking every single character from the movies. Yes, I said it, every single character. Now, how exactly are we going to do this? Because there's literally hundreds of unnamed characters in the entire trilogy. And if I were to go about it that way, well, you'd basically be listening to me rank way too many characters for about the same amount of time it takes to watch one of the movies. And I can't only use my own judgment for which characters are important enough in my eyes to be included in this list. So instead, we are ranking every single character that is casted in the credits. And how many characters is that, you may ask?
87.
Sorry, what was that, Aragorn?
87.
Ah, yes, you heard him, folks. There are exactly 87 characters that are listed in the credits in all three Lord of the Rings movies. So today, I will be ranking each character listed in the credits from worst to best. Now, while I consider myself a Lord of the Rings nerd and a major fan of the films and books, my rankings today will strictly be based off of the movies. From the fiery depths of Mordor to the golden woods of Lothlorien and the luscious green hills of the Shire, let's dive in and see who claims the one ranking to rule them all. '87, the Mordor Orc. Look at him standing there menacingly on the Black Gate. Congratulations on last place, buddy. '86, Gondorian Soldier 1. Pretty sure we only see him standing here and nowhere else. At least he's a good guy, which is why he ranks higher than the Mordor Orc. '85, Gondorian Soldier 3. He's on the lower levels with Gandalf, probably saw more action and is more brave than Soldier 1. He deserves the number 85 spot here. '84, Ranger 1. We don't really see his face, he doesn't say anything, but the Gondorian Rangers are pretty cool. 84 it is. '83, Uruk 2. Of all the villains, we only see this one once, and his moment to shine is acting cowardly, but at least we see some emotion versus just standing in one place. '82, Harad Leader 1. Mr. Oblivious that a single elf is taking him out and his Oliphant. '81, Elf Escort. What's his role? Gracefully walking to the Grey Havens when there's many other brave elves risking their lives for the freedom of men. '80, Corsair Captain. Looks pretty tough, ends up screaming like a little girl, but at least he's not avoiding battle like the Elf Escort. '79, Bounder. Poor Hobbit fellow, just trying to make sure the law is kept in the Shire and falls victim to a good head chopping. '78, Otho Sackville Baggins. Not as scary as Lobelia, hence the reason why he ranks lower. '77, Damrod. He's a Gondorian soldier, and although we didn't see it, he did last the entire night fighting off the orcs of Mordor. '76, Hero Orc. Seriously? You couldn't figure out on your own to burn the neighboring trees to fuel your fires? He is the first orc in our list to have some dialogue though, so there's that. '75, Bereg. We see him here and there with Faramir, but he doesn't do much other than inform Faramir that Osgiliath needs help immediately. He is a Gondorian ranger, and they're pretty elite fighters, so he earns the 75 spot here. '74, Manflesh Orc. The only character on our list whose only line is also his credits name. Why is he not lower? Well, the Orcai are fearsome enemies, but his ability to sniff out Aragorn from miles away is a pretty sweet ability to have. '73, Gondorian Archivist. Without the Gondorian Archivist being so willing to let Gandalf explore thousands of years of fragile documents, our story likely would have ended well before Frodo ever left Bag End. '72, Farmer Maggot. Just a humble little hobbit farmer just trying to make a living. Clearly terrified of the Nazgul, but he does a decent job keeping him at bay. '71, Theodred. Any son of the great King Theoden is bound to be a great man. While he could have been a cowardly prince fighting in the rear, he clearly displays more of his father's style of leadership by being amongst the men in battle. '70, Orc Sergeant. Truly one of the more menacing orcs we see. There's something creepy, gross, and evil about this orc that we don't see with every orc. '69, Rohan Soldier. The gatekeeper at Helm's Deep. This Rohan soldier is loyal even amidst a clear defeat. '68, Lobelia Sackville Baggins. An intimidating presence for sure. I sure wouldn't want her as my cousin-in-law either. '67, Iarlos. Okay, listen. He's a Gondorian soldier who's stationed in the higher levels of Minas Tirith. His shaggy hair, 5 o'clock shadow, and worried eyes show that he's probably stressing about the situation his men are in more than his leader. Despite letting Denethor go mad and burning himself alive with a clearly living Faramir and saying nothing, he appears to be an honest yet conflicted soldier. '66, Mrs. Bracegirdle. Wow, a mother of 9 young kids, all likely below the age of 10. Man, this woman is a saint. All her children seem to be very well behaved as well, so she has some great parenting skills for sure. 65, Baby Gamgee. Sam's cute baby. Any child of the true hero in this trilogy deserves to be ranked higher than even cool orcs that have more screen time. 64, Old Noakes. Has 2 lines of dialogue, but gives off the vibe of that cool old man on the street that has some pretty cool stories to share. 63, Orc Lieutenant 1. This orc seems outright crazy. Some orcs give off vibes that they're quite sane, evil, but sane. Forget sanity here. Any orc that wears a skull on their head and can put on a smile with that nasty scar is not right in the head. 62, Ted Sandyman. While we don't get the full Ted Sandyman experience from the books, this dude gives off the vibes of a hobbit who is up to no good. 61, Mrs. Proudfoot. Oh man, any husband can relate to the look Mrs. Proudfoot gives her husband. When we husbands are enjoying the childish things in life and acting immature, she steps in and stomps on the fun, making her presence and actions quite relatable. 60, Wildman. This dude is either loyal AF or outright crazy. Probably both. Anyone who spends several seconds slicing their palm as an oath of loyalty shows that they mean business. 59, Malheur. Alright, this orc only has a single line, but it's kind of a funny one, and he says it in such a deep, menacing voice that you can never forget about him, ever. 58, Shagrat. Okay, in a weird way, I don't like him as much as other orcs because he seemed to want the Mithril shirt for himself rather than to give it to the Great Eye. 57, Orc Commander. I'll never forget watching the extended scenes for the first time as a kid and my heart racing as he pursued the 2 helpless hobbits. When it comes to orcs, he's the first one so far on this list that I truly would never want to come across. 56, Eldarion. Aragorn and Arwen's unborn son. While he doesn't do much other than run to his dad and stare at his mother like he's disappointed in a vision, he does play a huge role in making Arwen stay in Middle-earth, which has a chain reaction effect in making Aragorn embrace his destiny as the King of Gondor. 55, Aldor. Look, we can rip on this old man all we want for prematurely starting the battle at Helm's Deep, but this old man clearly doesn't stand a chance against the strong and ferocious Uruk-hai, but is still staring death in the face to preserve his country. Mad respect. 54, Gatekeeper. A bit rude, a bit rough around the edge, but just a funny old man who plays a perfect gatekeeper role. Sucks the way he died though. 53, Sharku, the Keeper of the Wargs. Nothing really special to say about this orc other than he just seems like a capable orc. It's just unfortunate that he stumbled upon one of the greatest heroes of the Third Age. 52, Barlinman Butterbur. A perfect representation of how we imagine every good host of an inn to be. 51, Isildur. This character and the next are the first ones that may be truly controversial. In the books, Isildur is a true hero, and although he kept the ring for himself, there was no ill will or evil desire in doing so. In the movie, however, he comes across as far more selfish and corrupted. However, he is the one to cut the ring off of Sauron despite hope appearing lost. 50, Gil-galad. This guy has only 2 or 3 seconds of screen time, despite being one of the absolute legends in the Lord of the Rings lore. I will admit it, this is the only character on this list where the books are influencing a ranking. 49, Madril. Farmir's loyal number 2. Not as young and spry as some of the other soldiers and rangers, but able to hold his own. 48, Freda. A bit annoying with her crying and complaining, but it's understandable. As sad as she is to flee without her mother, she shows great resilience for a young girl. 47, Grimbold. This is the only time we see Grimbold, but we hear his name as King Theoden charges the orcs at Pelennor Fields. King Theoden instructs Grimbold to take his company right, and it's safe to assume that, like King Theoden, Grimbold takes the lead in his charge, which makes him a brave leader of Rohan. 46, Celeborn. Like many of the elves portrayed in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, Celeborn is far more serious than he appears to be in the books. Yet he does accept the Fellowship in their time of dire need and gives Aragorn a sick dagger and critical information of him and his company being hunted. 45, Gaffer Gamgee. Another character with very limited screen time who ranks somewhat high on this list, but he is the father of Samwise Gamgee. To raise a courageous, loyal, and tender hobbit like that deserves high praise. 44, Hama, a loyal soldier and officer of Rohan, perhaps a bit too loyal though in following the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law. My only beef with him is not that he dies screaming like a baby, because I'd be terrified too if a warg was about to bite my head off, but that he can clearly tell that his king is sick, unwell, and making poor decisions, yet doesn't push back at all, simply following all of his orders unquestioned. 43, Haleth. Ah, poor kid. Days after his father gets ripped apart from a warg, he's tasked with fighting in an unwinnable battle at Helm's Deep. We don't know his fate, but we hope that he made it through the night. 42, Eleanor Gamgee. What a cute young toddler hobbit. Being a dad myself of young toddlers, there's nothing more rewarding than coming home after a long day and having your kid run into your arms. Plus, she is a Gamgee, so bonus points for her. 41, Ugluk. The reason he ranks highest among the remaining surviving Uruk-hai is because his decision to protect the helpless Merry and Pippin. While the reasons were not righteous ones, he was so loyal to his commands that he was willing to fight to the death to protect these hobbits. On top of that, he's clearly an intimidating Uruk-hai that you do not want to mess with. 40, Grishnak. Talk about orcs who are outright creepy. The way he hunts Merry and Pippin, wanting to eat their legs, just gives you the chills. The reason he ranks somewhat high on this list is for that reason. 39, Morwen. Your heart goes out to this caring mother who is willing to risk her life to save her children. I can't imagine the fear and hurt she felt as she watches her 2 children ride off to safety. How she manages to survive this raid, I have no idea, but I'm glad she did and was able to return to her children. 38, Harad Leader 2. Why does this Harad Leader rank way higher than his counterpart? This dude is crazy and loves the death of war. I remember seeing this guy in theaters for the first time and thinking, man, this guy means business. I mean, this dude, along with his Oliphant, must have taken out at least, 50 Rohirrim? A force to be reckoned with for sure. 37, Everard Proudfoot. We all love this old geezer. He gives off the vibe of a strict old man, but we get to see his soft and tender side as he's laughing with enjoyment watching these little kids having the time of their lives. 36, Snaga. This pesky and sneaky little orc gets the 36th spot simply because I love the way he carries himself. His high voice and instinctive nature of hunting his prey makes him a bit of a comedic yet terrifying enemy to always keep one eye open for. 35, Gamling. Like a Grimbold, one of the heroic leaders who charges into certain death on Pelennor fields. He's a loyal servant to King Theoden, and in his king's moment of doubt and despair, he gives Theoden words of encouragement at Helm's Deep, helping his king be the leader he needs to be. Gamling is a man of action, and just looking at his face for a few moments, you can see he appears to always be tired and exhausted, giving us the indication that he literally puts his all into everything he does. 34, King of the Dead. First off, without this dude and his army, Sauron would have wiped Gondor off the face of the earth. He comes in clutch, turning the tides of war, and on top of that, he's just overall pretty sick character and more unique than any of the other characters that we see in the entire trilogy. 33, Deagol. Thank goodness for the opening scene to the third movie for allowing us to get a glimpse as to who Deagol was. The main reason he's a bit higher on this list than others is because his character gives us more background to Gollum's origins. And to be fair to Smeagol or Gollum, Deagol was the first to attempt killing the other. Can't fully blame Smeagol for all the chaos that ensues here. 32, Gorbag. I remember as a kid pretending to be Gorbag because he was so athletic, resilient, and for a smaller sized orc, kind of like myself as a person, outright fearsome and deadly. One of the cooler orcs on this list. 31, Rosie Cotton. Samwise Gamgee's love interest. What kept Sam going even during those dark times? Several things. The promise he made to Gandalf to not leave Frodo, his love for Frodo, his understanding of the evil they had to defeat, and maybe even his love for Rosie that someday he might make it back home to her and marry her, which we are all happy to learn he does. 30, Eothane. I have so much respect for this kid. Amidst all the chaos of his town being raided and people fleeing before they're killed, he listens to his mother's commands, understands the situation, and keeps his cool, which likely helped his sister feel some sort of comfort. This young man made his way on horseback all the way to Edoras and fulfilled his task of taking him and his sister to safety. This boy was raised right. 29, Elendil. The highest ranking character with not a single line of dialogue and very little screen time. While everyone was fleeing in fear from Sauron, Elendil knew retreat was not an option and took the initiative to confront evil in the face. This action alone ultimately led to Sauron's defeat. 28, Lurtz, the biggest and most baddest Uruk-hai we see in the entire trilogy. He takes out Gondor's fiercest leader, chokes out an orc upon birth, can run on end without getting tired, and nearly kills Aragorn, arguably the best fighter in Middle-earth. Do not mess with this dude, he will kill you. 27, Black Lieutenant or the Mouth of Sauron. Of all the extended scenes in the entire trilogy, the scene with the Mouth of Sauron was the most surprising of them all. We got to see another very unique character from the trilogy, some sort of fallen man with powers to see without his eyes and discern who people are based off of their voice. A manipulator of men and a truly evil and deceitful being, he ranks 27 on this list. 26, Haldir. Our first impression of Haldir is not a positive one, as he seems upset and almost rejects the Fellowship entirely. However, we see this hero truly shine in the Two Towers as he arrives at Helm's Deep at the last second with elven reinforcements. Rather than flee Middle-earth and sail to the Undying Lands, he leads fellow elven soldiers to certain death in defending the existence of men. 25. The Witch King. Name one other force of evil more formidable than Sauron himself. Maybe Saruman, but even he can be negotiated and reasoned with. The Witch King is a literal servant of Sauron with no choice in the matter. He's strong, terrifying, and a powerful entity. In The Return of the King, we see him at his most powerful, but let's not forget his presence in the Fellowship of the Ring is what we remember these many years later. As Frodo and the hobbits are being hunted, we can't help but feel terrified for the helpless hobbits as well, making the Witch King a memorable character. 24. Arwen. I feel like Arwen gets a bad rap. What does she do exactly? Be dreamy of Aragorn 24/7 and steal him from Éowyn? Well, I do agree that Éowyn, at least how the movies portray it, was a much better match for Aragorn. However, let's not forget that Arwen is the one who led all 9 of the Nazgul on a mad chase in a brave attempt to save Frodo from eternal darkness. Her love of Aragorn and his love for her is one of the reasons why Aragorn ultimately puts aside the Ranger and becomes the king of Gondor he was born to be. And she is also the one who finally gets through to her father, Lord Elrond, to get more involved in helping save mankind from death and darkness. Arwen plays a pivotal role in the fight for Middle-earth. 23. Sauron, the man himself. The main antagonist of our story, the servant of Morgoth and the master manipulator. We don't see much of Sauron throughout the trilogy, but we do hear his deep, dark speech voice occasionally, which sends chills down our spine. And his physical presence in the prologue cannot be understated. Simply put, Peter Jackson and the crew executed portraying pure evil wonderfully on screen. 22. Gothmog. He earns the highest spot among all orcs in Uruk-hai. This orc looks like he's been through the ringer many times over again. An orc who is in control of everything, intimidates all others around him, and shows amusement for the twisted and evil things. Gothmog shows why he's the leader of the largest orc army we've seen in the Third Age. It's pretty clear that his body isn't in full peak physical shape as some of the other orcs we've seen in this trilogy, but for him to be in that position with those physical limitations means that his leadership is exactly the type Sauron is seeking in his leaders, someone who shows fear and no mercy at all times. 21. Éomer. When King Theoden's mind was poisoned and others looked on not doing anything, Éomer was a man of action and pushed back against the king, mostly against Wormtongue, and attempted to help his king do the right thing. For this, he was banished, yet he did not stop fighting Saruman's armies and continued raiding them. And when the king needed him most at Helm's Deep, Éomer didn't hold any ill will towards his king and immediately came back to the rescue. Like Grimbold and Gamling, Theoden also helped lead the charge at Pelennor Fields, as well as the charge upon the Black Gates of Mordor. A great warrior, a great leader, and a man whose king and country come first above all else. 20. Wormtongue. The poisonous weed that corrupted the mind of King Theoden. Why is this creepy and toxic weed ranked so high? Because of how he's amazingly portrayed of being a little guy whose words are his weapon, rather than his physical strength. And I must say, Brad Dourif's acting skills are unparalleled in this film. There's only one other actor that would give him a run for his money, which we'll get to soon, but overall, Wormtongue is a perfect spy-like character who shows moments of conflict, but his weakness and fear ultimately win over his bravery. 19. Saruman. First off, Christopher Lee plays an amazing villain, and perhaps more than any other actor, he seems to really understand the character Tolkien was trying to present to his readers. Saruman deserves a high ranking because of the giant thorn he is to all of Middle-earth. Here we are with Rohan, Gondor, and the remaining elves of Middle-earth trying to fight off the great powers of Sauron. And if Saruman wasn't so selfish, his assistance would be immensely great in helping ward off Mordor's armies. But instead, his will to control Middle-earth with the One Ring himself throws a huge wrench in the operation, which nearly causes the downfall of all mankind. 18. Treebeard. Oh, we all love Treebeard. I know there's controversy with how he was portrayed in the movies, but we still love him. He cares for Merry and Pippin and their well-being, and is a big teddy bear who wishes for good things. What puts him in the top 20 of this list, though, is his heroic actions of calling all the Ents to his side to fight Isengard, creating the dramatic moment of the last march of the Ents. Like so many events, it is a pivotal moment that turns the tide in favor of the good guys. 17. Faramir. While Faramir was initially a jerk to Frodo and Sam and didn't have their best interest in mind, he ultimately did what his brother could not do and surrendered the One Ring to its ultimate destruction. On top of that, he's a humble leader of Gondor, a skilled warrior, and despite the crap he gets from his father, he does what he must do for his country and fights for their freedom. 16. Elrond. We get to see some pretty cool action sequences of this legend fighting on the hills of Mount Doom. The fact that he lives on for another 3,000 years indicates that he's one of those few remaining legends of Middle-earth that have incredible knowledge and words of wisdom. One thing that is a bit annoying about him is his disdain for Aragorn and his daughter's love for him. Putting that aside, however, Elrond is one of the only people who understands that the only way to end the war with Sauron is to destroy the One Ring. 15. Legolas. As a kid, Legolas was my favorite character. Super athletic, pulls off amazing moves, more accurate with his bow than any army sniper, and has vision that goes on for miles and miles. He was the perfect fantasy character I wanted to pretend being as a kid. On top of all these abilities, Legolas also becomes a great friend to a former foe, Gimli. He's a great asset to have and is loyal to the end to Aragorn and his leadership. 14. Bilbo. The only individual to ever willingly give up the possession of the One Ring. Not even Frodo could do that. One could argue that Sam was able to, but he was only in possession for, what, a day? Bilbo was in possession of the ring for about 60 years. That's a significant amount of time. For him to show humility in this critical moment was a feat of strength no one else in the entire trilogy or history of Middle-earth was able to show. Mad respect for him. Lastly, the love and care he shows for Frodo and the friendship he cherishes with Gandalf shows us the more tender side of Bilbo. 13. Denethor. Arguably the best acting performance in all three films. John Noble does a fantastic job at playing a disgruntled father and a hopeless leader. Denethor is a stern man who cannot be intimidated by any man, wizard, elf, or even Sauron himself, I'm convinced. Yes, he does fear his army, but uses the Palantir to see into Sauron's mind, showing that he is one of the few people who can stand up to Sauron. He's actually a quite believable character who has worked his entire life defending his country and keeping Mordor's armies at bay, but has many flaws and slowly becomes mad from the spoils of war. 12. Pippin, the first of the four main hobbits to be mentioned on this list. Every great movie needs some comedic relief now and again. Pippin is that comedic relief, especially in the first movie. He thinks they're on a hobbit walking party and takes everything so lightly, nothing is serious to him, even after being chased by the Black Riders. So we love Pippin for brightening things up a bit for us in this dark world. But Pippin does find his courage as Galadriel counsels him and helps Gandalf fight off the orc armies in Minas Tirith, as well as becomes one of the first to charge the Mordor armies at the Black Gates. Does he make mistakes? Oh yeah, for sure. But he's a friend we all wish we had who can help make a bad situation enjoyable, whether intentionally or not. 11. Éowyn. Braver than most men, Éowyn is a true hero of Rohan and a loyal servant to her king. Éowyn is a bit of a sad case as well because her days have been of darkness, death, and sadness. Yet she finally shows joy and happiness again as Aragorn comes into her life. And when she thinks they may spend the rest of their lives together, he puts a dagger in her already hurting heart when he shares her dreams cannot become a reality. What does she do in this moment of depression? She gets on a horse, helps a dejected Merry, and goes into battle. Rather than wallow in her sadness, she becomes a woman of action. She also becomes the person to take out and defeat the powerful Witch King, which cannot be overlooked. And we're also happy to learn that from the extended scenes, she finally finds the man of her dreams in Faramir and finds happiness. 10. Frodo Baggins, the main character and protagonist of the movies. Frodo Baggins embarks on a quest he did not want for himself yet volunteered for because he knew it was the right thing to do. It's a lesson for all of us that the greatest of heroes aren't the ones who seek out massive quests and deeds. Rather, they are the ones that are somewhat forced into difficult situations to do the right thing, even when they've had every opportunity and right not to do so. Even as the movies progress, Frodo comes to the realization more and more that this quest will claim his life. Yet despite this, he continues to embark on this quest anyway. My only beef with Frodo is that he's a bit whiny at times, acts cowardly, and does things that make absolutely no sense. Otherwise, he'd make it higher on this list. 9. Gimli. He can be rough around the edges, but when you really get to know him, he has a big heart and truly cares for the well-being of others. I mean, look at him as he's jumping for joy, seeing Frodo after a long time, or feeling failure that the Fellowship failed Merry and Pippin, or his look of shock thinking that poor Frodo and Sam were killed in this massive volcanic explosion. On top of this, he's yet another great warrior who isn't afraid to jump into the lion's den head on. And perhaps the most tender moment of the entire trilogy is when Gimli is sharing with Legolas the precious gift he received from Lady Galadriel. He didn't want a weapon or some fancy tool, no, all he wanted was a hair from her golden head so he could look upon its beauty, since he would never be able to look upon the beauty of Lady Galadriel again. And in Instead, he received 3 precious hairs from her golden head. Gimli appears to be a rough and ragged dwarf, full of jokes and laughter, but he's really a sentimental and caring individual, making him number 9 on our list. 8. Galadriel. First of all, she's a wonderful narrator of the prologue, perhaps the most epic opening scene to a movie of all time. Her low and quiet voice is a perfect fit for introducing the world of Middle-earth to us, but this is just one reason for many others. She seems to be the ultimate force of encouragement in Middle-earth. Boromir shares that she spoke in his mind and shared that even now there is still hope for his beloved country, bringing him to tears. After the Fellowship loses Gandalf, Galadriel embraces the Fellowship and comforts each one of them in her own way, allowing them to grieve in peace, but with hope. And when Frodo loses Sam and is left completely discouraged and alone, she appears in his moment of need and gives him that extra bit of encouragement that he was destined to complete this task. Yes, there is this odd scene where she goes beast mode and seems like she's suddenly going evil, but in the end, it was a necessary step for her in rejecting the offer of the One Ring, showing her true incorruption, making her a critical character in the successful destruction of the One Ring. 7. Merry. Other than Samwise Gamgee, Merry, in my opinion, is the bravest and most courageous of the hobbits. Merry's maturity and seriousness shows that he understands the gravity of the situations they're in. I especially appreciate his interactions and conversations with Treebeard and explaining to him that Treebeard cannot avoid the war going on. If he sits this out, evil will spread to Fangorn Forest as well and impact him. And after Boromir is being slain by arrows, Merry is the first to pick up his sword in defense of his dying friend. And in the end, Merry is the one who helps Éowyn defeat the Witch King. Again, of all the hobbits, Merry seems to want to be involved, help out, and do whatever he can to better the odds in the fight against Sauron. 6. Aragorn. I've always loved Aragorn because he is the incorruptible hero we all are looking for. He's an amazing fighter, skilled hunter, tactful negotiator, and an honest and humble man. Think about it. Whenever Aragorn is present, you always feel like things are going to be okay. He cannot be defeated. When Aragorn shows up at Weathertop, we know the hobbits are safe now. When he, with the help of Gimli, jump onto the causeway to hold off the Uruk-hai, there's no doubt in our mind that he will be able to do the impossible task. And as he returns to Gondor as the king, we know that reinforcements have come and all will be well. Aragorn always seems to pull off the impossible and brings hope when there really is none to begin with. 5. Gollum or Smeagol. Gollum is now one of the most iconic characters in film history. Even though Gollum is a gangly, gross little creature full of evil plots, we as an audience have fallen in love with this wretched creature because he is so captivating, entertaining, and yet his role in this trilogy is paramount in the destruction of the One Ring. What's great about Gollum is he has his little Smeagol friend to keep him entertained at all times as well, which is what makes him even more entertaining as he's torn between doing the cowardly thing or doing the aggressive thing. We also never know exactly what Gollum is plotting in that brain of his. He gives the best facial expressions and mischievous looks, so we know that not all is well in that head of his, but he seems to always have a plan. He literally is that pesky little fly you cannot swat away, and his drive for the One Ring is what makes him the most resilient creature on our list. 4. Gandalf. Sauron is the mastermind behind the evil in the world, and Gandalf is the mastermind trying to bring different races and groups together to fight as one unit against the evil threat. Gandalf always seems to have a trick up his sleeve, is wisest of all, and is loyal enough to his quest that he is gifted with a second life. Like many other characters on this list, Gandalf can be a bit harsh and rough at times, but in the end, he cares way more about others than he does himself. When he parts with the 4 hobbits at the conclusion of this epic journey, we cannot help but feel we are parting with a good, dear friend as well. 3. King Theoden. What a king he is. When we first see King Theoden, he's a fragile old man with a poisoned mind. But when Gandalf cleanses him from Saruman's powers, we get to see the brave and heroic king. What I absolutely love about King Theoden is he recognizes that the way he's led his people has been subpar. He believes that his ancestors were better men and feels guilt and shame for not living up to their standards. After being cleansed from Gandalf, he almost seems to make a vow with himself that he will live the rest of his life in good standing with his ancestors. At Helm's Deep, when he knows defeat is inevitable, he does his best to encourage his men. When Gondor calls for aid, he puts aside his pride and answers the call. And finally, what really puts him number 3 on this list is that epic speech he gives as the riders of Rohan charge into battle. Defeat and death is likely, but Theoden embraces this, rallies his men and his little hobbit to embrace death and fight until the death. As King Theoden lies on the ground with his dying breaths, he shares that he is now no longer ashamed to be in the presence of his ancestors. We can't help but feel the peace he must now feel after his valiant effort to fight for good. 2. Samwise Gamgee, the nature-loving gardener of the Shire who fights evil and darkness, an environment he despises yet shows great heroism in. Sam shows extreme loyalty to Frodo on his quest to destroy the One Ring. In the first film, when Frodo feels like he needs to leave the Fellowship and complete the rest of his journey on his own, Sam, making a promise to Gandalf that he wouldn't ever leave Frodo, was willing to risk drowning in order to fulfill his promise. And this isn't the only time Sam risks his life to stay with and protect Frodo. From pulling him away from the Nazgul to fighting Shelob, all the way to pulling him to safety in the cracks of Mount Doom, Sam shows true grit and determination to help Frodo. While Frodo does appear to be given all of the praise by the Fellowship for bearing the heavy burden of carrying the ring to Mount Doom, Sam's burden was helping carry Frodo in a literal and figurative sense to Mount Doom, of which he was never given praise for, nor did he seek it. This shows immense humility and that his goal was to never seek reward, but to simply do what was right. Frodo said it best when he said that he wouldn't have gotten far without Sam, and boy, he was right. Sam is a good example of how the seemingly most insignificant of people can help in making the greatest changes of the world. A hero indeed, Sam is one of those characters in the Lord of the Rings that every fan has a true admiration for. 1. Boromir. This may be shocking, and some may think this is a horrible pick, but allow me to explain. Boromir is the most relatable character in the entire trilogy precisely because he does have flaws but yet redeems himself in the end. Boromir is a man who prides himself in being a man of Gondor, whose passion is to protect his country and to restore glory and honor to Gondor. With this passion, however, the temptation of the One Ring caused him to believe he could wield it in an attempt to save Gondor. In this temptation, he tries to take the ring from Frodo, after which he immediately realizes what he had done and regrets it with great pain and sorrow. Boromir is not a horrible person for trying to take the ring. Boromir, after recognizing his mistake, goes out triumphantly in fighting off the Uruk-hai to protect his defenseless and dear friends Merry and Pippin. In an emotional scene, Boromir takes 2 arrows to the chest while continuing to fight off the Uruk-hai and protect those 2 hobbits. The 3rd arrow finally causes Boromir to fall weakly to the ground and kneel helplessly as the hobbits are taken away. Boromir fights with honor, and any misdeeds he had done in the past are redeemed in his valiant effort to save and protect Merry and Pippin. On top of all of this, it is my personal opinion that Boromir is the one who played the most key role in motivating Aragorn to accept his role as king and save Middle-earth. As we know, Aragorn struggles accepting his destiny as the king of Gondor. Boromir attempts to tell Aragorn that there is indeed weakness in Gondor, but there is hope and courage as well. While Boromir begins his relationship with Aragorn in despising him, he gradually gains more respect and admiration for Aragorn, wanting him to return to Gondor and save it. But Aragorn harshly insults Boromir, denying his request. As Boromir is dying, the darkness and despair overcomes him as he tells Aragorn that the world of men will fall and that his city will fall into ruin. Right here, Aragorn makes a promise to a dying Boromir that he will not let Gondor fall into ruin, nor let their people fail. This is a critical moment in the entire Lord of the Rings story as Aragorn finally acknowledges that he is a man of Gondor, just like Boromir, and that he will do everything he can to save their people. Boromir finally has a sense of relief and can die in peace knowing that his king, Aragorn, will save Middle-earth and his people from the evils of Sauron. If it were not for Boromir, his continuous urges to Aragorn to have faith in their people, and for his honorable death, Aragorn would not have had the motivation to return to Gondor as king and help defeat Sauron. This, along with his bravery, patriotism, and relatability, are why Boromir earns the top spot on this list. Well, there you have it. Every single Lord of the Rings character ranked. I'm sure there's some controversial rankings in this list and some disagreements, so if you do disagree, let me know in the comments where you disagreed. I'm also curious who everyone else's favorite Lord of the Rings characters are, so leave a comment sharing who your favorite character is or even your top 10 list or something. Well, if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around till the end of the video. This took a lot of time and effort to make and put honest thought into, so if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you'd love to see more content like this in the future, please even consider subscribing as well. Anyways, thank you again for the support and for sticking around for another Too True SMEG review. Until next time.